Hi, my name is Stephen Nitz. Thank you for checking out this class. This is all about Premiere Pro. So if you're here, that means you have an interest in post-production. What is it? Where does it come from? What cosmic queries can I answer by learning this piece of software? And those are all excellent questions and ones that I hope to answer throughout this course. Learning how to edit is something that takes a little bit of time, but the more time you invest in the craft and the more skills you learn and the more tools you add to your toolbox within this specific space, the more your creative is going to improve, the more your cinematography is going to improve, the more your storytelling is going to improve. Basically, everything comes together in post. So the role of the editor is an extremely important one because you kind of see behind the curtain of everybody else's. How is the lighting done? How is the shooting done? How is the sound? How is the script? Is this all going to come together in a cohesive way? And the role of the editor is to kind of make that happen. So if you're a content creator or you're just an individual person that's out there trying to make your own movies or tell your own stories, this is actually a great course for you because we're going to address the things that post-production can kind of teach you outside of editing that you can apply to stuff like shooting. So we have our footage, we either shot it ourselves or it was provided to us, and we need to get the media from our camera into Premiere Pro. How do we go about doing that? There are a couple of methods that we can use. Some are better than others, but maybe depending on the technology you have available to you, you can't necessarily do all of these options. The first thing I'll say is a bit of a warning and a red flag, a thing not to do, and that would be taking your media out of your camera, putting it in your card reader, and then editing off of that. It's something that I see a lot of people do when they kind of first start shooting, they first start editing, they'll have their media on their SD card and they'll edit off of their SD card too. And the problem with that is you're creating a lot of risk, right? You have to put that card back in that camera so that you can continue shooting, continue working on the project. And if all of the media lives on here, if all of the footage, the project itself, live on this card, you're creating a lot of potential to lose that information, to write over that information, to accidentally format the card and then delete that information. The solutions for that: one, make a folder right on your computer, transfer the footage from the SD card straight to the folder on your desktop. That works. That's, level one base way to go about doing it. Second option, and this is the one that is most practical for people, is to get an external hard drive. Something like this. This is a little, 2 terabyte SanDisk. Transferring your footage to something like this gives you a little bit more flexibility in how you edit. And one of the benefits of keeping your media on a separate drive from the software is it actually helps Premiere run a little bit faster. And the third option is a NAS, or network attached storage. That's, basically a big fancy version of this that you access through your home network or your computer network. Usually it has a lot more storage, a lot more computing power available to it. So if you're working on tons and tons and tons of media, 4K, 8K nowadays, something like a powerful NAS is probably going to be the route that you want to go because it's going to give you the fastest, biggest, best kind of way of managing your media, but it is more expensive. So that's why most people will lean into using something like an external hard drive to store their footage on, because it's more cost effective, but it also kind of answers that same problem, or is a solution for that same problem of how do I get my footage from here to here in a safe way. So we're going to go ahead and plug in our external hard drive. We're also going to go ahead and plug in our card reader with our media from the camera. Allow accessory to connect? Yeah, absolutely, we do. Now here on my desktop, you're going to see two things. You'll see CNF, this is what I call my external hard drive. This up here, Homes, that's my NAS, and then this Macintosh HD is the actual hard drive from this system. So just here at a glance, you can kind of see those options I was talking about. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to open up my external hard drive and I'm going to create a new folder. I like to call these parent folders because it's going to be the main name of the project or thing that you're working on. I went ahead and shot myself making this cup of coffee before sitting down. I'm going to make that footage available to you in the description so you can kind of follow along with me if you choose. So let's just go ahead and make a new folder. I'm going to call it coffee. I'm going to open up my SD card. Here you can see this is like the root menu of the camera. Every camera manufacturer has a little bit different of a root menu setup. Obviously this is a Sony camera, and this is typically what it'll look like when you pull footage off of a Sony camera. Maybe it's not M4 roots, you know, maybe you're shooting in ProRes or something like that, but the FX3 shoots MP4s, so that's why you see the M4 root. When you tab it open, you will see all of these options. Now, depending on how you use Premiere Pro, there is a couple of ways that you can actually use these subfolders to ingest your footage. So the safe thing to do to make sure you have everything is to lasso all of these and add them to your parent folder. There are a couple of things that we could do here before we open up Premiere that could kind of help set us up for success. And it really comes down to how big is your project? How much footage have you shot? How many things are you trying to organize? Because the more organized you are in the beginning, the easier the entire process will be. So I only shot the one scene of me making coffee, so I'm not too concerned with organizing my footage further. But let's say we have several shoots over several days. Maybe within our parent folder we want to break stuff up by dates, maybe you want to break it up by location. It's kind of up to you as the media manager and editor to figure out what folder structure you want to make to keep your stuff organized. But the number one thing is transfer that footage to an external storage device of some kind, whether it's an external hard drive, a NAS. You can even use cloud storage if you have to. There are some amazing solutions with Amazon Web Services where you can actually host and edit stuff in the cloud, which is nice. Either way, you just want to make sure you're putting in that time, putting in that effort to stay organized. So we have our footage in. Let's go ahead and open up Premiere. When you first launch Premiere, it looks just like this. There's a couple ways that we could go about starting a new project. Obviously this big fancy new project button looks the most appealing, so let's start with that. First thing that we notice is a dialog box pops up. This is very important, this dialog box. The project name, the location, the template if there is one, are all things that we need to look at. So I already know I'm going to call this thing coffee. I'm going to go down here now, browse for my location. This is telling Premiere where to save the project. This is where not keeping stuff on your SD card, putting stuff on an external, and staying organized becomes very important, because you can save your media from the camera to an external, but if you don't point Premiere to that location, it's kind of for naught. So the number one thing we want to make sure we do is hit Browse, and then select that same parent folder that we just put our footage in as the location for this Premiere Pro project. And the reason for that is we want everything pertaining to it in one place. I don't want to have my Premiere Pro project file saved here locally on my desktop and then all of my footage here on my external, because it breaks apart that project, right? If I have everything on here from my project files, my temporary files, my downloadables, my music, you know, the footage itself, then I can unplug this external, plug it into a completely different system, and have everything I need to kind of pick up my edit. So it's really important to keep everything in one place. So I am going to hit Browse. I'm going to select my external hard drive. I'm going to select my parent folder for the project, and I'm going to hit Select. I don't have a template that I'm going to use for this particular one, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Create. All right, Premiere Pro has launched. Now if we go back into the folder, the parent folder that we made on our external hard drive, you'll notice right here in that folder where we told it to save is the Premiere Pro project file itself. So if you want to double check your work, make sure you're saving your project to the same location of your footage, which should be in that main parent folder. Just take a peek, see if you see that project file in there. If you do, great, you selected the right location to save your project. Now that we're in here, we've got it open. This kind of tile here that says source, this is where our media is going to show up, our camera raw stuff. Once we import the files here where it says import media, as we select the files, you'll kind of see them pop up here as your source. This is where we can scrub through that footage and actually cut out pieces of the footage that we want and apply them to our timeline. Right down here where you see timeline no sequences, That's where the actual editing is going to take place. We're going to see, the audio on there. We'll see the footage on there. We'll see the clips on there. You'll see your stacks, your edits, your changes, your music. Kind of everything behind the scenes is going to take place down here within the timeline. The program monitor is actually going to show you what's taking place down here in the timeline. So source is where we're pulling from. Timeline is what we're putting down, and program is what it actually looks like, what the editing we're doing down here visually looks like. All right, so a couple of ways that we can go about bringing in that media. Obviously, this big import media button is one way. You can click on it, and it'll take you to your parent folder, right, which is the same location that we picked earlier. If you've picked that location properly, it'll open up to where your footage is. So we're going to go into MP4, we're going to go into clip. You can see here, there's a couple of different file types. It's either MP4 or XMLs. One technique that you can do is to change up how it looks. You can group them by kind. Through doing that, now I have all of my MP4s kind of aggregated in one spot. I can simply click on one, hit Shift, scroll down, click on the bottom one, and then hit Import. That's one way. Let's undo that. All right, second way. Let's say I have my File Explorer window open. I can simply tab Open to the footage. I can organize it by kind so that all of my MP4s are separate from all of my XMLs because I don't need these document files. Click on the bottom one, hold Shift, click on the top one, drag and drop them in. That's the second way. Let's undo that. The last method is using Media Browser. So depending on the camera manufacturer, they might actually break apart the audio file from the video file. Using Media Browser is how you would ingest those files so that those separate elements get aggregated together as a single file within Premiere. I've had people reach out to me before saying, I took my footage from my SD card, I put it on my external, I brought it into Premiere, and I don't have any sound. I don't understand what I did wrong. If you used one of the first two methods, that could happen depending on what camera you're using. So if you encounter that, try doing it this way. Go through Media Browser, go through the camera's root menu, select the footage from the root menu, and ingest it that way. You'll notice there's a little box here that says ingest. I don't want to go too far into the weeds with it, but one of the cool things that you can do if you're using a bigger format camera, something like an ARRI or a Blackmagic or something, and you're dealing with really big files, you can actually create proxies, which will help your overall workflow, and we'll get more into proxies later on. So I'm gonna go ahead and cancel this. I'm gonna go back to my project. I'm gonna go with the drag and drop method for this because I know these MP4s, I've worked with them before, I know my audio is baked in. You'll notice here, once they hit, there's a little bit of a difference here in frame rates. Some of them are in 120, some of them are in 24. I shot some slow-mo, some regular, just to give us a little bit to work with for this project in particular. All right, so there it is for this first class. We've discussed getting media from point A to point B, the different options that we can use, whether it's an external hard drive, a NAS, using the computer itself as a place to store stuff, and understanding that we should never edit straight off of our SD card. The next class that we have, we're going to get into creating bins, creating sequences, taking that footage that we now know how to ingest and import, and turning it into an actual edit. So check out class number 2 for how to go about that.